I'm Karima Brown. It's Sunday and it's time for The Fix. Welcome to this edition of The Fix, where every Sunday we hold those in power to account. We tell you why it matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. Now, most sectors of society have welcomed the economic package, totaling 500 billion rand to deal with the fallout from COVID-19, announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa earlier this week. But many questions remain as to where the money will come from and how it will reach those whom it is intended for. To unpack the unprecedented rollout, I'm now joined by the Director General in the National Treasury, Mr. Dondo Mogajane. Mr. Mogajane, good morning. Thank you so much for coming onto The Fix. Now, when the Finance Minister on Friday, Mr. Tito Mboweni, addressed the country, he made it very clear that the government did not intend to mobilize the full 500 billion support package. He was saying not all of this is going to come from the fiscus, but it is in the economic system. To quote him, he said, we need to think beyond in the working and with the private sector and economic system as a whole. Exactly how much money is going to come from the fiscus then?
Good morning, Karima, and good morning to your viewers. Karima, all of it, and I'll explain it, all of it will definitely come from the fiscus in its broadest context. Firstly, the 200 billion rand that's coming as a credit guarantee, obviously it will increase your contingent liabilities. It effectively means we are accounting for it in the fiscal system. That's one. Two, I think what he meant was exactly that 130 billion rand is what will definitely come from the fiscus in terms of current budgets. We will reprioritize 100 billion from national departments and 30 billion from provincial departments from those programs that are not related to COVID, those programs that are not going to perform this year, and those programs that you can do without in the short term. An example could be travel. We are not traveling right now. No one is traveling in government. There's quite a sizable amount across the system of travel budgets. Will, to an extent, reduce some spending that are not related to, your goods and services. In some departments, for health, for instance, we'll definitely beef that up. But for us, for instance, if you look at advertising budgets, we are not going to really be going full-blown into those, spending items. And there's a number of such items that we are presently finalizing, but the equal amount, about 130 billion rand. Now,
130 billion is not 500 billion, right? But let's just go with your outlining. If you're talking about reprioritizing monies, and you spoke about the provinces, does that mean things like housing, like sanitation, infrastructure that is critically needed in provinces will actually be redirected? Are you, in fact, robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Not at all, Karima, not at all. We are actually saying, in fact, some of those spending items will actually increase. We've started already with rolling out some housing. We've started rolling out, in the context of COVID-19, water and sanitation. We're actually firming up interventions there. So it's not going to be there. The rest of the money, in terms of the line of approach that you used earlier, the rest of the money will obviously have to look at existing options that are available to us, go into multilateral investments, development banks, get more money from there to beef up the war chest. We'll obviously go to ensure that we give some tax relief, make sure that we actually make more money available, and finally we'll use the war chest that we have in the UIF system to actually ensure that we actually cushion the impact of COVID-19. So it is not robbing Peter to pay Paul, but it's essentially slowing down certain types of expenditure, and which we must do, and focus, because there's not enough money in the system. So slowing down some expenditure items is a good thing to do, and I think it must be encouraged.
Now, you spoke about the fact that you are going to go to international institutions. On Friday, the minister was saying that as a member of the World Bank and the IMF, South Africa has the right to access these institutions in times of crisis. There's been backlash from that because of the conditionalities. Categorically, DG, you are interacting with the World Bank and also with the IMF. Where are the discussions at, and what kind of assistance are we asking for in monetary terms? Are we only going to ask for assistance in terms of health, specifically dealing with COVID-19, or are we also going to ask for more longer-term support from those two institutions?
Karima, currently we are only focusing on those instruments that the World Bank and the IMF and the New Development has in terms of focusing on COVID-19. They have as institutions, all three of them, including the AFDB, African Development Bank, they have put aside billions of dollars to actually assist countries that are impacted by the virus. From the IMF, there's a facility there called, it's an RFI instrument for COVID. I forgot the actual name, but I'll get to it. It's an instrument that the IMF has said South Africa qualifies for $4.2 billion. We will certainly go for that. Secondly, there is the World Bank has said for COVID health-related, in particular, they said South Africa can access a loan of about $50 million. The the New Development Bank did say long ago that they have set aside $1 billion that we can access, and again, we will be accessing that. All in all of these interventions, currently we are looking at $95 billion, 95 billion rand coming from these institutions, only for COVID-related interventions that we have to actually make a difference for people. So
now,
we'll only be for now on these.
Okay, so what are the conditionalities for COVID-related loans, particularly when it comes to managing a debt to GDP ratio? Because, of course, that is our big problem, and you have to keep a beady eye on those debt ratios.
Look, our debt to GDP ratio is certainly going to increase, no doubt. The more, from the estimates that we had in February, we are going to be going to the market and borrow more. Not only because of this, but also because of the downgrade. Let's not forget the downgrade. The downgrade has a huge impact on us. Our cost for borrowing has increased, and actually we have to then make sure. The general point I think that all of us must acknowledge, Karima, is that these are uncharted territories. It's a different environment. We have to do everything at our disposal to make sure that we contain the virus, including actually reprioritizing monies from projects that are clearly not priority for now, including looking for new money that is cheap, new money, and I'm emphasizing that new money that is cheap, because currently the discussions obviously should center around what exactly the term rates are going to be, and then that's where we are at currently. We are discussing with them, and we know for sure, and the IMF themselves said it upfront, that it's a 1% interest that's available. And then we will certainly go for it because it's cheap.
Now, you said that this is specifically tied to health. You've just now given us the conditionalities. It will be 1%. Will you service this loan in dollars? Is that the currency that we are going to be servicing this debt? And when exactly, DG, is this finances going to become available to South Africa?
Look, the discussions are ongoing currently. We are having set meetings next week, in particular with the IMF. We've had discussions with, in fact, all three of them. NDB, for the past 2 weeks, we have been engaged. We started with the NDB, went to the World Bank, and now we will be fully engaged with the IMF. It will take, for the IMF, for instance, it will take anything between 4 to 5, 6 weeks to get finalization of the deal. And then once the board of the IMF has confirmed that, we'll certainly, obviously, within 72 hours get those resources coming through. It is an agreement that obviously we should have with them, and the central bank, the South African Reserve Bank, obviously will come in, because that's how the money will flow. But it will be directly to us. It will be obviously 4.2 billion. It will come in dollars, but obviously we'll service it in rands, as you can imagine. So we don't think, and this is all up for negotiations and ensuring that we get the best deal for South Africa at this point in time, and that the agreements that we have to reach with them are not in any way compromise, or should not compromise, the sovereignty of South Africa, and also compromise the stance that we took in the choices that we make in the past, that actually addresses how we spend our money and what interventions we want to make in the lives of South Africans. So that's insofar as the IMF is concerned. But if you look at the World Bank, as I say, they did indicate that there's $50 million, and this $50 million is health. It's nothing else. It is health, and it is important that we ensure that we we use it for health-related expenditure, including, by the way, and if you look at the cost of what we're doing, everything is in a pool. By deploying, by more officers, by buying equipment, by actually ensuring that you've got more PPEs, all of those are related to COVID-related expenditures. So, and by setting aside quarantine side, mobile hospitals, if we have to do that.
Okay, we've got to cut to a break quickly. When we come back, I'm going to be talking to you just about the conditionalities of those loans and the extent to which you are able to negotiate with both the IMF and the World Bank. Stay with us.